Hey guys, let's get straight to the point. Today, I'm going to show you guys my favorite video gear that I've been using in the past year. And I've been using this for 85 to 90% of my projects. Sometimes I use my ZV-E10 for some casual stuff, but this is what I use for bigger projects. Let's go straight into the gear. This is an unscripted video. Again, I just want to talk about everything, so it might be a little bit longer, so that's why I didn't write the script for it. Let's talk about the camera first. I have been using the Sony A7IV as my video camera, and this is amazing. It has amazing autofocus. That's one of the major reasons why I'm using this camera and also Sony cameras for a lot of my projects, because I am filming by myself and I don't have a focus puller most of the time to pull focus for me. That's why I've been shifting more and more towards autofocus with the Sony cameras from my BMP-CC 4K and 6K video cameras. So that's one of the major reasons. The autofocus is super reliable. I've been filming a lot of dance video projects and it just latches on the dancer's face and it's amazing. It's really sticky no matter how fast the dancers are moving or I'm moving with the camera. So that's one of the major reasons. The second reason is because it shoots 10-bit 422 and allows me to do a lot in post when it comes to color grading and fixing the footage, because we are always filming within a really short period of time and I don't have the luxury to adjust all the lightings and everything, all the colors and stuff during on-set filming. So that's why having a robust codec really helps for me to not to worry about adjusting the colors and also fixing the image if there's like noise in the image in post. Of course, it's not going to be the same as the raw capability of my BMP-CC 4K or any other raw shooting cameras, but this is good enough, like more than enough for a lot of clients and my friends. And another thing is, if you have noticed from my previous videos, I always film in 1080p on the A7IV because I like that not clinically sharp image. If I'm filming in 4K, I feel like it's a little bit too sharp for my liking, and a lot of people put a diffusion in front of the lens, and I don't want to do that. So that's why I've been filming in 1080p, 24 frames per second. I don't do a lot of slow motion, so 60 frames per second, 1080p is still usable. If I really need the details, let's say the subjects are really far, like the people are really far away from the camera, then I'll switch it to 4K just to get that extra detail. But for most of the upper body shots, full body shots, close-ups, I can just use 1080p, 24 frames per second, and I absolutely love the image quality coming out of the A7IV. The lens I've been using is the Samyang 24mm to 70mm f2.8 lens. This is a great video lens. I did a review on it, and one of the major reasons why I like this lens is because it has really little focus breathing. So when you are focusing from far to minimum focus distance, the frame doesn't shift in and out. It doesn't zoom in and out. That's really important, because that in and out kind of zooming in and out when you're focusing, it's really distracting. At least to me, it's really distracting. I know the A7IV has focus breathing compensation, but this lens doesn't need it. It's not a native Sony lens, but it doesn't have focus breathing almost. So that's why I really like it. And also the f2.8 is good for low light. I usually don't blur out the background like that much. I don't really mind having some details or the background is in focus. So f2.8, it's perfect. I don't need an f1.4 or 1.2 lens. Also, the focus range is really versatile. 24mm is wide enough to include almost everyone in the shot, even if I'm in a really tight space. But I usually film between 35 to 50. You can tell that the lens will come out a little bit, but it's not that bad. And 70 is for close-up, just to have that special kind of blurry background kind of look. 70 is good enough. I don't need anything longer than that. The only drawback that I can think of when it comes to using this lens is this is a really heavy lens. It's like 1,000 grams, so it's really heavy. But luckily, my gimbal can handle it. We'll talk about that later, but this is the lens that I'm using and I've been using on the A7IV. And when I balance this lens on the gimbal, I have the DJI RS2 gimbal, and it's totally fine handling it. I will show you guys how I prefer balancing the lens and the camera on the gimbal, so I don't really have to readjust the gimbal when I zoom in and out. You can see that the lens barrel goes in and out. So I'll show you guys how to do that later. So this is the camera and the lens that I've been using for most of my projects. I do have wider lenses and I have prime lenses, but I prefer this setup because this is really quick and easy that I can change focal length with constant aperture. Let's talk about my gimbal. So here is the DJI RS2. I don't have the RS3 or RS3 Pro because the RS2 still works. And I know some features on the RS3 and RS3 Pro, it's better than the RS2 when it comes to payload and also some remote feature. I think it connects to the camera via Bluetooth instead of using a cable if you want to use remote recording and controlling the camera. I usually don't do that, so that's totally fine with me with the RS2. And I have this Tilta ring right here. I don't know if the ring is blocking my face, but this is my recent purchase and I love it. I absolutely love this ring because it's so much easier to handle the gimbal with, again, in my previous video, with both hands, both arms. You can easily move around without having to stress your arm when your gimbal is a single hand kind of single handle, I should say. Gimbal, it gets really heavy after just, I don't know, a couple of minutes if your setup is heavy. Even with this camera setup, it's still really heavy if it's a single handle gimbal. So having this Tilta ring, it's absolutely amazing. I can move around like this and it's really easy to go up and down because my arms are in a really nice and balanced position. I'll show you guys how it looks like after I set it up. Yes, I'm going to set up the whole thing during the video so you guys can see what I'm doing. And let's try to put the camera on the gimbal. By the way, I did not get the, I think it's a Pro or Advanced ring grip from Tilta because yes, they do have controls on both sides of the gimbal with record start and stop, and you can also control the focus motor that comes with the RS2 gimbal with the little dial thing that replaces the dial here at the front of the RS2. But I said it in my previous video that I don't like using those controls to control focus, even if I'm using a manual lens. It's really hard. Trust me, it's not really making any sense to me, especially when you're moving around with the gimbal by yourself and you're like trying to focus. It's no, I at least I cannot do it. I don't know about you guys or anyone else, but I can't do it. So I'm not going to do that. So let's try to set up the camera on the gimbal. On my A7 IV, I have the small rig base plate right here. I didn't get the cage because I don't want to make this camera even heavier because I do use this for photography as well. So having a cage, it's kind of too bulky and I don't want to take the cage on and off. So I have the base plate. The reason why I have the base plate is first, I don't like placing my camera on the table and scratching the bottom of my camera. Second, it has an Arctis Swiss base plate right here, quick release, and it matches with the RS2 quick release base plate. So I don't need to use that flimsy, tiny little base plate that comes with the gimbal. All I need to do is just slide this all the way to the end of the base plate and lock it. And now it's on. The only thing you need to watch out with this kind of setup is if your lens is bigger than this. I don't know why you would have a lens that is like thicker than this, but at least this lens is not touching the base plate. So watch out for that. Make sure that your lens is not bigger than the height of the camera. And I have the RS2 right here. You don't really have to see my face, so I don't really mind. So I will put the camera onto the gimbal like this. And this is, of course, unlocked. I'm gonna balance it really quickly. I have made a video before showing you guys how to balance a DJI RS2 gimbal or any other gimbals. So now this axis is balanced. I'm not gonna do a crazy accurate job right now because I just want to show you guys how this works. So this side is a little bit heavier. While I'm doing this, yes, I know the RS3 and RS3, maybe the RS3 Pro only has a heavier payload, so you can mount like heavier cameras and set up on there. So yes, that's great. But now it's balanced. This axis right here, it's already balanced for this camera, so I'm not gonna do it. I don't need to do anything about it. So make sure everything is locked properly before you turn on the gimbal. And this handle right here, I don't know if you can see at the top, that's where the battery goes. The RS2 original battery goes, and it does provide battery to the gimbal through the ring. So that's super amazing. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And yes, I always clean the ports before I put in anything. So here I will slide in the battery handle and lock it up with this thing right here. And I'll show you how I use the ring grip without using the handle, because the reason is not because I think this battery handle is flimsy and not able to handle the weight. It's because this mount right here at the top, they use 6 tiny little screws, like really tiny screws. They're long, but they're like super thin. So I don't want to risk having this part breaking on me when I'm using the handle to do like lower angle kind of shots. I don't want the camera to drop and fall on the floor. And another thing is these plastic legs at the bottom, they're not, at least to me, they don't look as sturdy. So be careful when you are putting your ring or your setup down onto the floor. Try to do it gently, because I feel like if you do it too hard, especially this ring grip will put everything kind of tilting to the front. I don't want this part to snap because I don't think they have a replacement for that. Anyway, so now the battery is attached to the ring grip. I'm going to unlock everything and power on the gimbal. And I'm going to do a quick calibration. We're not done setting up the camera setup. Oh, I totally forgot to set up another thing. I might need to rebalance the camera, but that's okay. It's not like a big deal. This is probably the simplest setup if you don't need any extra feature like monitors or like any other things. You just want the gimbal and the camera with the ring grip. So this is how it looks like. And as I said before, it's really nice that I can use both arms. You can see that the camera is extremely stable even if I'm moving like pretty crazily. So that's why I got the ring grip, and I didn't get the advanced one with the controls because I usually put down the gimbal and start and stop recording anyway, so I don't need that extra control, and I don't need to have another cable sticking into the camera. Unless you have the RS3 Pro, then you can probably do Bluetooth on this camera and then use the remote handle. And another thing is this ring grip without the advanced handles on both sides, it's much cheaper. So that's another thing. And when I was buying this ring grip, even if I purchased just one control handle on the right side, the one with the record start and stop button, that one is actually, like that combination is cheaper than buying the advanced ring grip because this side only has another the dial thing. So I don't need that. So having just one side with the controls and the basic ring grip is cheaper than buying the advanced one. That's just why I didn't get the advanced one. So now I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to turn off the gimbal because I forgot to show you guys one really important thing that I use in when I'm filming all my current projects. I mentioned it before and I reviewed this product before in my other video. This is a wireless video transmitter. This is from Accsoon. This is the CineView HE. This is an HD video transmitter that is capable of wirelessly transmitting video signal to the receiver, this is the transmitter, and it comes with the receiver. I think you can buy the transmitter separately, but I'm going to use this to wirelessly feed the video signal to an iPad. That is because I want my clients to be able to see the footage when I'm filming, so they're not standing behind me when I'm filming. So this is absolutely amazing, and all my clients and friends love having the capability of seeing the footage in their hands. I'm just using an iPad mini 2. That's like a 6-7 years old tablet or iPad, and it's still working fine, transmitting HD signal to the iPad. So that's why I have this here. This wireless transmitter, it's powered by NPF batteries. And I have a small rig monitor arm that goes to the side of the RS2 gimbal, and this one works with the RS3, I believe, that I can mount the wireless transmitter on. So I'm going to show you guys how I do it. I have, because the HDMI port is on this side, at least like the left side, if you're looking at the camera like this, the left side of the camera. So I'm going to mount this on the left side. I do have other wireless video transmitter that transmits like 4K 60 frames per second. That one is from HoloLens, but I like this one is because of the look. It looks stealthier. I don't want like any other colors popping on my setup. So here I have the monitor mount on the side of the RS2. I just need to secure this. I kind of wish that these mounts are a little bit like sturdier and more secure, because sometimes it drifts. So I don't know, if it has like area locking pins, then that will work. And I have, of course, an HDMI cable. To be honest with you, I don't really care about HDMI cables. Most of them can transmit 4K signal anyway. So this is just a regular HDMI cable that I had for my TV, and it's working fine. I only have one extra thing added here. This is from my BMPCC 4K Tilta cage, the L-shaped HDMI kind of adapter, so I can go this way. So the HDMI cable is not like sticking out like a sore thumb like this. So it's L-shaped and it goes all the way to the bottom. I usually make a little loop so it doesn't have such a long cable. I just need to see, I have to plug it in into the HDMI in port right here. And I will have to rebalance the gimbal because this tiny little cable sticking out will affect the balance. And I totally forgot to mention how I'm going to balance the gimbal with a zoom lens like this. But do it at your own risk, because I am stressing out the motors a little bit by doing that, but I really need the speed. So this is with the NPF battery. You can get a thicker one, but I want to have like a little bit more room for my hand, so I'm not like constantly like touching the battery if it sticks out too much. So this is, I believe it's a 550 NPF or 570, I can't remember. So if you get like a 970 NPF battery, it'll stick out like this, and you only have like half an inch of space if you want to move lower. So that's why this is the battery that I'm going with. And the battery life is amazing with this setup right here. After 2 hours of filming, the battery still has like 50%, so I don't need a bigger one. So now this is the setup with the camera and the wireless transmitter. I totally forgot to mention that I usually will set the focal length to about in the middle of the zoom range. So not at 24, not at 70, maybe somewhere at like 40 or 50. This way, when I'm zooming in and out for a different kind of focal length, I don't really have to rebalance the gimbal. But again, don't do it if you don't want to stress the motors on your gimbal. I'm doing it because I need the speed. So I'm going to quickly rebalance the gimbal and show you guys how it looked like. Okay, so this is very balanced. This side as well, because I have a cable, so that's why it's left side heavy. Oops, too much. Okay. Nope. Okay, so this is balanced as well. Okay. We're almost done with the whole setup. This is the setup that I would use for client work, basically with a wireless video transmitter so they can see the footage live. Even when I'm playing back on my Sony camera, it will wirelessly transmit to their iPad. So the playback will happen on their iPad. The only thing is I still need to figure it out is the Accsoon CineView HE app does not allow you to load LUTs onto it. So if you're filming in S-Log3, they will see a really washed out image. But for now, it's good enough. They don't really mind. So this is pretty much almost the full setup. It's still pretty compact, to be honest with you. It is heavy, so definitely consider getting an easy rig if you're going to use this setup for a long period of time, and you can clamp it onto the handle, the top handle right there. The last thing I will add to my setup, usually you might notice that I don't have a monitor with this setup right here. I'm trying to make sure that you guys can see my face. On this setup, I'm not using a monitor because I am using the HDMI going to the wireless transmitter. The reason why I don't need almost another monitor is because I have my phone. The Sony cameras are really amazing. At least the latest ones are really good, that they have an app that I, again, did another review video on. It's called the Monitor Plus app from the App Store. It works for iPhone and Android and iPad. So that app allows you to monitor the footage and control the camera if you buy the Pro version, which I highly recommend. I think that's only like $20 and you can start and stop recording, control the focus point, adjust the ISO, aperture, shutter speed, everything pretty much you can do it on the phone. So what happened is at the top of the Tilta Ring, I don't know if you can see it, there's a cold shoe mount, not hot shoe, but a cold shoe mount. I'm using a small rig monitor adapter and a cheap phone mount. A lot of people actually ask me what this phone mount is, but this is like one of the generic, like super cheap ones. So I'll post everything in the description below if you want to check out the products. Again, this is not a sponsored video. I bought most of the stuff with my own money, except the lens and the wireless transmitter, and that's pretty much it. Everything else I purchased them with my own money. So this is my full setup. Having the monitor or the Monitor Plus app at the top of the Ring is actually really good because a lot of time I film with this height because I don't like having this kind of view unless you're doing like a super close-up of someone's face, because like it's weird. You have too much headroom when you're away from the subject. So here is usually where I will put this setup or carry this setup, and having the monitor at the top, it's really, really good. This is a wireless monitor setup overall. I hate cables. So the HDMI cable is the only cable I would allow on my camera almost. If I don't need to show the client the footage on an iPad or iOS or Android device with a video transmitter, I will get rid of the wireless transmitter and use just the gimbal camera and the phone Monitor Plus app just to film like this, so I don't have any cable at all attached to my camera. Another thing is with the wireless transmitter, another good thing of having a wireless transmitter is when the Monitor Plus app gets weird or act up, it's kind of finicky. It uses Wi-Fi. You have to connect to your camera's Wi-Fi in order to make it work, and sometimes it doesn't work that well. It will have like delays, it will drop signal, so it really depends on the location that you are filming at. That way, I have a wireless transmitter. This wireless transmitter can go up to 4 devices, smart devices, so I can use the Accsoon app to receive just the video signal. I cannot control the camera anymore, but I still have a good signal going to a wireless monitor. That's why I love this setup right here. And also with the Accsoon or actually like any I'm just going to put the setup right here on this side. With any current budget-friendly wireless transmitter, no matter if it's like HD or 4K, for some reason, using Wi-Fi to transmit video onto smart devices are much faster. Like it's much faster than using the transmitter and a receiver. The latency is much better. I've done reviews on a couple of them already and they all act the same. So if you want the least amount of latency between the wireless transmitter, the video signal going into the monitor or the smart device, use Wi-Fi. If you need longer range, because Wi-Fi is really short range, we can do it within like a studio space. But if you need longer range, let's say a couple hundred of feet, let's say you're filming a concert and you're like all the way back at the booth, then you will need to use the receiver because Wi-Fi is not going to work. So Wi-Fi, it's fast, but short range, transmitter to receiver, long range, but slower. Not super slow, but there is a really, really obvious delay. So this is my setup right here. The cool thing, another cool thing, I'm just going to show you how I managed to carry this thing. Okay, this setup is heavy, but because I record dance videos, they usually dance for a minute or two max, and then I can put the setup down, review the footage, and then I can start filming again. So that's why I don't have, or I don't use an easy rig for this setup. But if you are, let's say, a wedding videographer, yes, please get an easy rig because this is going to be really tiring still. And another cool thing, as I mentioned before, I can move up like this really easily with the dual handle setup like this. But the super cool thing is I can actually go really low angle with this ring with just the single hand grip kind of setup with the RS2 or RS3, RS3 Pro. When you go low, it's really hard. Even if you have the handle on the side doing the briefcase underslung mode, it's still really hard because your arm is kind of stressed having to do this kind of gesture or putting it into this kind of position. Is really stressful for the arms. So this is amazing. This is perfect. What I do, I don't use the top handle like this because, as I said before, the screws, I don't trust them. At least I don't trust them. I carry it like this on both sides and I just let it hang like this. I can go lower, much lower, but this is really comfortable. So I will grab onto the side of the top bar of this ring grip and I can easily just film like this. And another advantage of doing this compared to a single handle or even just grabbing onto the battery grip right now is if you only have one hand on the gimbal, your body will tend to shift to the side and it will make your image kind of tilt to one side. I reviewed my projects from the previous setup. I have the dual handle, like one at the front and one at the back. I like that. It's good for your arm in terms of not stressing them. But most of my videos are tilting to one side because I was in this position. So if you use the top handle like this, it will still give you almost the same thing. It will kind of make your setup or your camera angle slanted to or tilting to one side. So having a dual handle like this really keeps everything balanced, and I can just look at the monitor like this and film without any problem. This is super comfortable. Okay, so that's my setup. And the last thing I will talk about is how I carry the Tilta Ring when I'm around. The RS2 camera, the Sony A7IV, the lens, wireless transmitter, battery, my phone, the monitor, the phone mount, everything fits in my backpack. That's great. But this ring is huge. So it's really hard for me to carry this. And I don't want to take this apart all the time. I can unscrew it and take this whole thing apart and then put it in the backpack. But I don't really enjoy doing that, especially when you have like electronic contacts within this ring right here. I try not to do that. And I really don't like taking things apart. So I actually purchased a bag, like a tote bag for like, you know, those like art canvases or canvas. You put it in a square bag, and this thing actually allows me to put the whole ring in there. So I'll be carrying my camera setup in my backpack, and I will have this tote bag right here, and just to carry it like this. So if you want to know which tote bag I bought, this is not big enough to close the zippers, but it's okay. I can still fit the ring in there, and I can still carry it like this. And I can literally walk around with this setup, my whole professional filming setup, with a backpack and a tote bag. So this is amazing. And yeah, that's it. This is my current favorite setup in 2023. It was my favorite setup in 2022. I'm pretty sure this is going to be my setup for the next like coming years. This is good enough for a lot of projects. Trust me, the image quality, I don't think anyone would complain on it. I love it, and I'm pretty sure this will last me for a long time, unless I'm changing camera system that I need maybe the RS3 Pro. I don't know, but RS2 good enough for me with the ring grip, perfect setup, wireless transmitter. This is my professional video setup. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. By the way, I am filming on the ZV-E10 with the kit lens. I'm testing something out with the kit lens, so I will probably make another video about it. But that's it for this video, talking about my favorite video gear. Let me know in the comment section below what is your setup for your video projects. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.